So, Julia's team have asked me to ask you to keep it light.
Well, what does that mean?
It means do that thing you do where you turn politicians into humans. Just don't get drawn into talking about the war or politics in general, really.
They do know this is the news, don't they?
You didn't hear this from me, but...
Oh.
Apparently, there's a crew at Team HQ right now. I think she's giving a speech or something tonight. They'll get it on the late news.
Oh, great. So they get the brains and we get the performing monkey.
Sometimes you sound just like him, you know.
How are you?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I miss him too, you know.
10 seconds, everybody.
Rumpled old sod.
Don't. Going in 5, 4, 3.
Good evening. This is the National Nightly News. I'm Megan Wolfe. It's the 140th day of war. Our main headlines tonight. Company of heroes. Skirmishes on land and sea again today as our armed forces tested the mettle of the World Council's illegal blockade. Advance's strategy of multiple small-scale incursions into the disputed zone is certainly keeping the enemy on high alert, unable to work out where or when the next strike will come. Proud parents throughout the territory find themselves ever more impressed by the bravery and commitment of their incredible children and the job they're doing keeping supply lines open against all possible odds. Sadly, however, more casualties were reported today, and as the weeks and months of this war make ever more demands on our armed services, those numbers will, tragically, only continue to rise. Don't starve. Advance's food programme moved from strength to strength today as rationing depots were opened in the last remaining unfed areas of the territory. The rationing depots have been constructed in record time, and the government's agricultural coordination strategy has seen shelves restocked with increasing regularity. However, with the reported rise in mental and physical health issues since the imposition of the blockade, critics have questioned whether those smaller communities which are only now starting to receive help could have been better and quicker served. And judging by the looks on this happy family's faces, it can't come a moment too soon. They'll be getting a good meal tonight on the government, just like the rest of us. 7 days to die. The recent decision to allow those with long-term health conditions to access transition centres has today been declared an overwhelming success. Previously available only to those in their final years, the expansion of the service has been met with relief by the many organisations calling for it to be opened up to the wider community. The transition centres have reported larger than expected numbers, but report that they are coping well and able to provide a complete and meaningful service to all who choose to use it. With dwindling medical supplies leaving many of our most vulnerable facing chronic pain, it can come as no surprise that the transition centres have found themselves stretched to capacity. Populace. More than 11% of the population have thus far failed to register for a team membership card, a worrying statistic given that the cards are a legal requirement from midnight tonight. While applications are still open for those who like to run fashionably late, they can expect a few tricky questions from Advance. It's up to the other 89% of us to remind our tardy friends that not taking advantage of all the exclusive services available to cardholders is now, as it should be, absolutely criminal. Sympathy for the devils? A poorly attended protest was held today by struggling self-styled resistance movement Disrupt. Support for the organisation has been falling after this and other news outlets showed the public their true colours. And while it's easy to feel some sympathy for them now, as their numbers dwindle and their attempts to garner support grow more desperate, let's not forget how threatening they could be in greater numbers. Disrupt spokesman Alan James said the demonstration was to remind people that, although they may have been less vocal in recent weeks, they remain the only real resistance to Advance. Start me up. Disrupt spokesman Alan James held an impromptu rally today in the northern city of Mankleypool. Large crowds gathered to hear the band speaker prove Disrupt are still able to capture the public's imagination. A representative from the Mankleypool Community Cohesion Team described the event as mostly peaceful, but it looks like Disrupt aren't going quietly into the night. Community cohesion officers found themselves challenged by the unruly mob element always present at Disrupt events, but thankfully managed to keep violent incidents to a minimum. Street fighting man. Spokesman Alan James today announced that Disrupt were responsible for the 2 explosions which rocked the capital's warehouse district last night. Julia Salisbury condemned the attack on what she described as vital medical supplies as pointless and barbaric. Mr. James commented, "Disrupt are strong and our numbers are growing. Advance fear us, and they should, because we're holding the line for freedom." 2 security guards from the warehouse complex were injured in the callous attack, which once again shows Disrupt's reckless disregard for human life. And finally tonight, our mutual friend. Bail was denied in the High Court today for shamed former National Nightly News anchor Jeremy Donaldson. The presenter will be transferred to new lodgings at Penton Ridge Prison, while the lengthy preparations for his trial, which is still 18 months away, begin. Following his very public breakdown on this programme 10 weeks ago, the once-loved presenter was disarmed and taken into custody by the Community Cohesion Team. Let's hope doctors can help the once great man. Since being taken into custody 10 weeks ago in this very studio, little has been heard from our former colleague. Despite how things ended, we wish him the best, and we'll be sure to bring you all the details of that court case every night. And finally, absent friends. Sad news today as the grave of former National Nightly News host Jeremy Donaldson is vandalised by radical Disrupt activists. The much-loved broadcaster suffered a very tragic public breakdown 10 weeks ago in an incident which ultimately cost him his life. A passionate and rebellious man, always willing to question authority, Jeremy was posthumously celebrated with a Team Service Award by Advance for his outstanding dedication to journalistic truth. Disrupt spokesman Alan James, whose organisation last week named Mr. Donaldson as the cause's first martyr, described the graffiti as a fitting tribute to a hero of the resistance.